Welcome back to JoJo's Bizarre Adventures Anime Review, Part 3B. This is pretty much the second half of Season 2. Stardust Crusaders, Battle in Egypt. Yep. This one adapts pretty much from chapters 181 to 265. Yep. 24 episodes, and almost all of them, except for the last episode, are basically listed as pretty much two-parters. They come for the last two of them, basically. Now, at the end of part 1 of the season, they finally arrived in Egypt, and simply put, for about the first about 12 episodes, this is basically trying to get to Cairo, because that's where Dio is. So, they get there. Well, before I continue, hold on a moment. I forgot to talk about, I didn't get a chance to talk about the music. Now, the song for the first half was Enemy of the World. For the dub version, it's pretty much the same as in the sub, except the sub was a little bit longer, like a good 30 seconds long, and it looks like for the dub they actually cut out some stuff. It doesn't look too bad per se, but it's a great song. The ending song, the end of the episode, pretty much the first half of the season, was I Walk Like an Egyptian. Great song, great classic 80s song. In the case of this half, they went through several different ending themes. So a lot of very quiet songs. That's basically how I would describe it. Yeah. But now back to the thing. They get to Egypt, and they have to basically battle through several different stand users. One is a woman. Yeah, second time they actually had to fight a woman. And her stand power is that she can magnetize stuff. And of course create sockets out of thin air. First in a rock. Not kidding about that. The other, of course, inside of an escalator. Yeah, it's really bizarre. Also, toward the end, they have 3 of the characters die. Pretty much half the team. Now with this half, they bring in the dog, Iggy. Now, I will probably not get a chance to hear Derek Stevenson Pierce, basically, his voice basically coming out of the dog. Because, basically, the dub hasn't got this far yet. But he's the one who will be voicing Iggy. Iggy is a dog, and out of the 24 episodes, he only speaks in, I'd say 2 episodes out of the entire season. That was the one he actually had a 1-1-5 with one of the stand users. The stand user was, in fact, a falcon. Yep, a falcon. And apparently this falcon stand ability can shoot ice out of thin air. Not kidding about that. And this falcon is very graphic. Now, it's actually very graphic, there's these 2 big dogs that basically kind of chase Iggy for a bit, and then they get on this door which leads into Iggy, just by sheer coincidence, just happened to find Dio's mansion. Yeah, I mean, Iggy just wandered around Cairo, and he just happens to find at the same time a beggar basically was paid by Abdul basically to find the place. And apparently Abdul used to be a fortune teller, which I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Don't know much about the guy. I mean, it seems like two of the characters, Patrick and Kayla, basically, those 2, we get a good amount of development for those 2. As for Joestar, the JoJo from the previous part, he already got pretty much a lot of development as it is, and there's that. And yeah, and everybody wears pretty much the same attire. Now, Iggy, about partway through this, basically, now part of JoJo's hat was pulled off. Yeah, basically the back of the hat was torn, and it stayed that way the whole time. He never brought a replacement, and somehow, basically in India, he managed to get, I forgot to mention this, he actually got a replacement coat after his last coat was damaged, and somehow he was able to get it really quickly, and he's very fond of his school uniform. Yeah, and I should point out, though, in part 4 and 5, his outfit is actually white, all white. I don't really know why that is, but that's basically what it is when it comes to him. He of course is this calm, cool character. Yeah, and it's pretty fun. And there are stand users. One, of course, has to be a relative of a stand user they actually fought in the previous part of the season. The previous one was Darby the Gambler. This one's Darby the Player, which actually, this is something also this half of the season does do, and several of the episodes end this way, where there's still story going on, despite the fact that the end credits rolling. Yeah, they do this in several episodes. Heck, they even do it in the last 5 or 6 episodes of the season, where they somehow run the end credits early, and they just basically the story just keeps going. Yep, that's simply how the season works. And in the case of Darby, the player, they actually wrapped his up not at the end of part 2 of what basically Darby the player part 2. They actually wrapped it up about halfway through the next episode, which was actually the first of the 2 episodes. Like I said, it could be a 3-parter, so Dio's War is actually a 4-part because the last episode is the conclusion to not only that little mini arc, but also the entire season. Yep. And of course, Dio, apparently his stand ability, which they revealed is stand to be the world, they revealed that very early on. And finally he puts a shirt on. Yeah, after basically walking around shirtless the whole entire season. Also, he spends the whole entire season hanging out in his mansion, doesn't go outside. Hey, there's this really cool moment where he actually stumbles upon a really cool looking car. And it's the first time he had ever seen a car. I'm so happy the anime did this. Because I don't remember if the manga actually did this as well, where he actually, when the first time he actually sees an actual car, because in his time, basically in the from pretty much 18, I'd say about during the 1880s, I'd say, actually could be 18, yeah, it was 1880s. Pretty much, basically, it was basically horse-drawn carriages, and this is the first time we've seen an actual modern-day car, though this is 1987, mind you. And it's a really cool moment, basically, seeing this. And also seeing that one of the stand users basically, now, when they kind of do something similar with this one that like did with Devil Gambler, where that was basically gambling, like actual, like, regular games, not about electronics. He uses simply electronics. Now, I looked it up. Now, apparently the console that this game... Now, look at the controller. I thought it might be an Atari, because it's 1980s and Ataris were popular, basically, at that point. In the case of this, the game's basically based upon... The 2 games they use in this particular 2-parter, actually 2.5-parter, is basically games based upon the Super Nintendo. So maybe, since it's from Japan, they probably use a Super Famicom. Now I started thinking, what the heck is a Famicom? Well, it's the Japanese equivalent to the NES and the SNES. Yep, that's simply what the Famicoms are. They're basically the counterpart to it. And they had games on them that were never released here at all. If I've heard, it actually is kind of hard to get these things. Now, I've seen one person who got their hands on a Famicom, a Super Famicom, and that's AVGN. And the Angry Video Gamer. Yeah, he actually has both of them. He's actually in reviews of games on those consoles. Now, the way the cartridges look, the way they look like they're designed, they look like they're based upon, not based upon the Super Nintendo cartridges. I remember what those things looked like as I grew up in the 90s. They were great cartridges, and they're actually taller than the actual cartridges they used in the actual show. In the show, they kind of look like cartridges they were used for the Sega Genesis. Yeah, it's like the design of these cartridges are based upon that, even though the games themselves are based upon games from the Super Nintendo. Like the first one was called, I think it was like F-Zero. Well, this one's called F-Zero. It's a racing game, and apparently they race in a racetrack that's in the middle of a ruined city, which is a little odd. The second one is a baseball game, and it has a feature of creative play. Now, I looked it up. Now, the games in the late 80s, early 90s did not have the feature of 3D. They did not have that at all. They just made it up for the comic and, of course, the show. It's really, they actually had a real life, games based upon, even though the games are in fact fictitious and they don't physically exist, but they're based upon real life games. After Darby is defeated, apparently his job in the place in Dio's mansion, he's basically Dio's butler. And the next guy is called Vanilla Ice. It's quite obvious, basically, by the name, who this guy is named after. The rapper, basically the white rapper Vanilla Ice. Yes, I have heard this guy's music, and it's quite interesting to listen to, especially since one of his most best-known songs is Go Ninja Go from Teen Adventure Heroes 2, Secret of the Ooze. And I think his other song, popular song, was "Cool as Ice." I've heard he hasn't had a big hit in probably about 15 years, but yeah, obviously based upon Vanilla Ice. Oh, and the butler, he's actually the other Darby's. He's his brother, but he's actually his younger brother by 10 years. Oh yeah, and his older brothers never beat him at anything. Yeah, he mentioned at one point that his brother was hitting on his girlfriend, and what was his punishment for? Getting the crap beaten on by his younger brother. Yep. But yeah, this was one really good season. I really enjoyed Stardust Crusaders. Heck, I even enjoyed it in the manga version of it. It's just really, really good. Now the ending, I do remember this really well from the manga. Basically, of like, I don't remember exactly how Dio was defeated per se, but from what I can tell, it's probably nothing much different how he was defeated. I do remember how Joseph basically was resurrected. I do remember that basically they brought it back via a blood transfusion with Dio's body. Though Dio's head was already fully destroyed, that's basically get rid of possibly series probably one of their best villains, and he's probably by far the only villain to actually come back. Yeah, he's the only one. As for recurring characters, excuse me, Susie Q does appear in this one. I've heard she does appear in part 4, and I think she appears in. I don't think she appears in part 5, but I think she does appear in part 6. I'm not really sure about that. But basically, a lot of the Susie Q scenes I've basically seen here are just that they added because they weren't originally in the manga. But it was always nice to see Susie Q. Now, who's my favorite character outside of the JoStars? For the last one, it was the German. He was pure fun. This one, I would probably say it is Petrov, the Frenchman, basically who stands basically called Silver Chariots, and he's a swordsman. Yep. And I thought he was a cool character, and the fact that out of the three outside of the Joestar, the other like 4 characters, he got the most development. As a matter of fact, he actually got a chance to kill his sister, the man who killed his sister. And his name is Centerfold, and apparently this is something I thought was really weird. Apparently, he's a guy with 2 right hands. Okay, very bizarre. But yeah, this was a really good season, despite the whole name like Stardust Crusaders and it looked like it could be a space topic. It takes place entirely on Earth. The only time as at this point where any of the characters go out of space was actually the previous part when one of the Pillar Men actually goes to space. Oh, as a matter of fact, looking at Terrence Darby, that's the name of the guy who basically is the younger brother of the Darby from the previous one. It looks like Hakuda basically. I think that's how you pronounce the guy's name. I have to look him up here. It's Haruku Akari. Yeah, it looks like that he probably, because he's probably based upon, but because his design is obviously based upon the Pillar Men, and the Pillar Men were if anyone remembers them with the manga in of course Part 2, basically second half of season 1, they were very bulky guys, and they spent a lot of the time hanging out on the ground. That could explain the reason why they're afraid of sunlight. And it's sad to see that 3 of the characters are killed off. Abdul was an okay character, not much known about him. He basically was a character completely straddled in mystery. Kata basically, him I thought was an interesting character. He's my second favorite outside of the Joestars because I thought he was interesting, very soft-spoken like JoJo, like Jotaro. And here's kind of the thing: he is never called JoJo outside of the pilot episode. Yeah, not even Joseph Joestar is called JoJo, even though that was that's what he was called commonly throughout the entirety of Part 2. This time he just called Joseph. And I'm a little bit surprised that Jotaro didn't ask Dio, like, what was it like to fight my great-great-grandfather? I'm surprised he didn't ask him that. I was hoping he would ask him that, but nope, he didn't ask him at all. Yeah. But season 2 was really good. I'm hoping that when I finish season 3, it won't take me as long as this one, basically like almost a week. Yeah, because this one's only 13 episodes, not 48, so there's that. Plus there's an OVA that's connected to this one, and it's called Thus Spoke by Shikatsu. Yeah, it's basically a spin-off character it's a character who appeared in part 4, basically. Was given his own series of short stories and of course adapted into an OVA, which I haven't had a chance to read yet, and I can't find for some reason. It's kind of hard to find this thing, but yeah. Otherwise though, good season nonetheless. Over on, and part 2 was really, really good. I kind of get the reason why they split it in half, because my guess is they wanted to end it. They wanted to get a halfway point, because basically last season was basically split in half as well. Like the first half, basically the first like 9 episodes was Phantom Blood, and part 2 of the season basically was Battle Tenacity. They probably wanted to do the same thing with this particular season, so they split it in half and had like the Road to Egypt basically, and the second half made basically the Battle in Egypt. That's probably my reasoning of why the animators of David Productions had to do that. Otherwise though, yeah, when I'll probably get a chance to watch a dub of this one. Finish doing the dub, I probably won't, because I'm probably just going to move on once I finish the series up. My next anime series I'm going to watch like right after I finish watching everything for JoJo is going to be Attack on Titan. That's going to be the next one. So, yeah, that'll be the next one after I finish everything for JoJo. So, yeah, that's really it for this episode. Stay tuned for probably, hopefully, in 2 days, maybe to do the final season of the show, which is season 3. Which is adaptation part 4. Diamond is Unbreakable, which is the longest part of all 8 parts of the entire series. Okay. Oh, and in case you're wondering how far I am with the manga, I'm still on part 5. Yeah, I haven't finished it yet. I'm still working on it. Okay. But until I see you on the next video. Bye.